Good evening to all to the third day of our program. Today our program coordinator Dr. Sanjay is going to deliver on non-traditional optimization methods such as genetic algorithm, particle swarm optimization, teaching learning based optimization and Java algorithm. So I request Dr. Sanjay to start your presentation. Only 27. Okay, only 27 people joined. Okay.
Thank you very much, madam.
We can
We'll
wait
start.
another 5 minutes.
No, madam, we'll
Oh, we'll
start.
start. We can start. We can start.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. Okay.
My screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Yes, yes.
Visible.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the day 3 of soft computing techniques for emerging application. This is sponsored by our CCE of NIT Warangal. So in this talk, in this session and the next session, I am going to cover some of the non-traditional optimization methods. That methods will go in details, but I will give more emphasis on genetic algorithm because it is a quite old algorithm, but it is giving so many things which is used by rest of the algorithm. So we'll focus more on the genetic algorithm. Maybe in the first session, I will fully occupy for the genetic algorithm. We'll discuss genetic algorithm and its implementation. In the second part, we'll go for the particles from optimization and Jaya algorithm and TLBO, that is teaching learning based optimization. And in tomorrow's first half talk, I am going to cover the talk three specific algorithm proposed in 2020, that is known by a very famous researcher of SBNIT Surat, that is Professor Rao. He developed three important algorithms that we will discuss in tomorrow's class. The name of that algorithm is called Rao 1 algorithm, Rao 2 algorithm, and Rao 3 algorithm. So this is my outline. So I am going to cover genetic algorithm first, and then it is followed by the PSO, followed by in today's talk we will go for TLBO and Jaya algorithm. The rest algorithm we will see in tomorrow's class. Okay. So before going to this non-traditional optimization methods or we can algorithm, we should know why it is required. Why we want to go for such type of algorithm or such type of methods, right? So whenever we are going for real life problems, or you can say scientific problem, or you can say mathematical problem, or you can say engineering problems, these problems are too complex, right? And if you see such problem, the complexity is very high, right? And the variables, whatever we are using for designing that particular problem, is also so many variables are there. Okay. So in order to solve these large scale engineering problems, traditional method is not sufficient. Traditional method is facing a lot of difficulties whenever we want to solve such problems using the traditional methods. So it is very difficult to find a particular solution because of its different various steps, whatever used, and whatever variables used, and what type of function is used. It is too complex. For example, if you go for linear programming in mathematics, you may have seen linear programming, or you can see dynamic programming. Such algorithms, if you see, the number of variables is very high. Just like we are writing 5x1 plus 6x2 minus 3x3, and if the problem is too complex, then the number of variables is also increasing, right? So the main difficulties is with the large number of variables in such a type of programming whenever we are using for large scale engineering problem. Second one is they are using the nonlinear objective function. right? I will tell you about what is a linear objective function and nonlinear objective function later. And the main difficulty is that they reach to the local optimum, and it may happen that the algorithm, this particular structure or this particular follow procedure is failed to solve the problem, right? A very informal example I want to give here, so that people will understand what is the local optimum and global optimum. So if you go to Play Store, there is a game, very famous game, which we call as a hill climbing game, right? In hill climbing game, you can see that one person is riding a vehicle, right? It may be a car or it may be a bicycle, and he is climbing in a hill. So based upon that, algorithm, or you can say that game, is called as a hill climbing problem. So there are several hills are there. Okay, let us see. This is the hill, right? The hill is like this, right? So let the person is present here, means the current state of the person is in this particular position. Then the person will try to move to upwards of the hill, that is uphill, we can say. And once the condition what we can put here, that what is your current step and what is your next step, that you have to analyze. For example, this is your current state and this is your next state. You can move to the next step if and only if the height of that step is more than the height of your current step. If I'll put such type of constraint, then what will happen? Once you reach to the peak of a particular hill, then you can see your solution is not improving, right? Or if you are present in this current position, let's say this is a current location for another person, then that person will reach to this particular point. After that, there is no increase in the height, so you are not going to you are not going for some your next step, right? You are declaring this step is your final step. So it may happen that once you are reaching to this particular point, okay, it may be your local maximum or it may be having your global maximum. By local maximum, just I want to tell you that in your current hill, you are in the top position, okay? And if that top position is top among all the hills, then we can say that is your global maximum, right? That is the maximum part. If the problem is to maximize, then in that case you can go for local maximum or global maximum. But if you want to go for minimum case, right, suppose the position is just like this, right? So what will happen here? The objective is to minimize. If the objective is to minimize, what you can do, you have to find your local minimum or you have to reach to the global minimum based upon what kind of techniques you are using to solve that particular problem. But if such type of problems, or if you go for a, like I mentioned about large scale engineering problem, if you are applying these techniques, this linear programming and dynamic programming techniques, so you are reaching to the local optimum solution or your solution is failed, right? Which force you to use the non-traditional optimization algorithm. So this is the main need why we are moving from the traditional one to a non-traditional optimization algorithm. Our objective is to reach to the close to the solution, close to the optimal solution, you can say. Okay. Suppose the optimal solution is 2, then our objective is to reach to close to 2. It may be 1.99, it may be 2.01. So this is the reason why we are moving for non-traditional optimization algorithm. Next is here you can see, you can clear the concept of what is the difference between linear one and the another is non-linear objective function. In the first case, you can see you are drawing a particular boundary, right? And you can define a boundary for a particular problem, right? Boundary is your straight line we have drawn, and everything is within that that boundary, right? So this function is this objective function is called as linear one, right? So in this case, if you see, optimum always attain a constraint boundary, and if you achieve the local optimum, that is called as your global optimum, right? Like I mentioned, if you are reached to the top of the hill, you are claiming that is local optimum, then you can claim that is also called as your global optimum if the objective function is linear one, right? But If the objective function is nonlinear one, so what will happen? The optimum may be in the interior as well as the boundary of the constraint, right? And in this case, you cannot claim the local optimum is same as your global optimum, right? So by using these non-traditional methods, what we want to achieve? We want to achieve a solution which is close to the optimal solution, right? That's why we are going for non-traditional methods instead of using this linear programming or dynamic programming techniques. So if you go for this non-traditional optimization algorithm, although we'll discuss this genetic algorithm and PSO, these are based upon the nature-based algorithm. Something we are seeing in the nature, okay? So, or something we are seeing in the human being. Based upon that, we want to model a particular algorithm, right? So the mostly all the algorithms whatever developed in the non-traditional algorithm is inspired from a natural phenomenon, right? And if you see such algorithms, these algorithms mostly use the stochastic optimization. Stochastic optimization means you can see here we are using the random numbers. Like I will tell you how to generate such a random number, right? Each and every algorithms, whatever there in the non-traditional optimization algorithm, these algorithms are purely based upon the random number, right? We have to generate the random number subjected to the operator, whatever operator we are using. So based upon that, we want to try to optimize a particular thing, whether it is a minimization or it may be a maximization. So in this case, if you see the working principle, right? So it is consist of two extremes. One is called your random search. We will start from a particular point and we will try to reach to the close to the global optimum solution, right? So in random search is based upon your extreme exploration, in which we are trying to get the global search, right? On the other hand, the second one, instead of going for exploration, we are going for exploitation. Here, our objective is to trying to get the local search. So both things you have to adjust in the case of non-traditional optimization algorithm. Exploitation things also as well as your exploitation things. By the random search and hill climbing, you have to do in the non-traditional optimization algorithm. Now, see the classifications of the algorithms, right? If you see, there are three major groups of the non-traditional algorithms. First one is called as your evolutionary algorithm. Under evolutionary algorithm, I have listed 7 algorithms. So it is not the complete list. So you can search and you can get a lot of algorithms are there inside the evolutionary algorithm. But as a part of evolutionary algorithm, we will only focus on the genetic algorithm. So these are based upon, you can see, based upon the behavior of a bacteria, okay, or based upon the human behavior, these algorithms are developed. Okay. Similarly, the second type of non-traditional optimization methods is called your swarm intelligence. So like particles are moving in the sky, right? So they are searching for food, right? Based upon their nature and behavior, we are going to model a particular algorithm that we can call it a particle swarm optimization, or it may be based upon the behavior of an ant, right? Like you know that whenever there is a food source available, so ant is moving towards the food source, right? So their characteristics and behavior is modeled in the form of an algorithm which we call as a swarm intelligence algorithm. So our Manju madam is going to cover this ant colony optimization tomorrow, right? So in this section, I will focus on the particle sum optimizations. So apart from this evolutionary algorithm and your swarm intelligence algorithm, we have another type of category that is called as your nature inspired algorithm, other nature inspired algorithm, in which you can see you have teaching learning based algorithm as well as your Joya algorithm. In the next lecture, tomorrow's lecture, I am going to cover about the Rao algorithm, which was proposed by Professor Rao in the year of 2020. And in this group, Madam is going to cover this simulated annealing approach, where you can also explore this other nature inspired algorithm. So these are the three basic categories what we are going to discuss in today's lecture. Coming to the genetic algorithm, right? So this evolutionary computing was developed in the year of 1960 by Reichenbach. So initially there is no concept of evolutionary computing, right? The term is coined by this particular person, right? Later in 1975, John Holland in University of Michigan, so he developed the genetic algorithm, right? So, but if you see the traditional genetic algorithm, what was developed in the year of 1975, and if you compare that genetic algorithm with today's genetic algorithm, they are completely different. Although their basic steps are same, but a lot of development done in between the 1975 to 2020, right? That's why I am going to each and every steps of genetic algorithm to tell you what are the possibilities can happen in each and every steps of the genetic algorithm and how it really affects the performance of the genetic algorithm. And the very first application, although in 1975 other branches are not there, right? At that time civil engineering is very popular. So the first application of genetic algorithm is done by Goldberg and Samtani, right, in 1986. So they applied this into a problem that is related to the structural engineering, right? So this is the basic history of our genetic algorithm. So why we are going to use this algorithm? Because we have a objective, right, which we represent in the form of a particular function. Each objective is defined in the form of a function. It may be a single objective function or it may be a multi-objective function. For example, in day-to-day life, what we are doing, we want to minimize our time, right? So whenever we want to minimize our time, then you can say, so that is a single objective function. We want to minimize the time, rest parameters is not related to this particular function. But somebody want to do two tasks, right? You want to minimize the time and he want to increase his profit. So if you go for such problem, your objective is not to save time, your objective is also to increase the profit. If you want to model such function, that is called as your multi-objective function. So again, whenever you are defining a particular function, right, a particular function f of x, then you have to decide whether f of x you need to maximize or f of x you need to minimize. As I mentioned, our objective is to reach to the global minimum or global maximum. It depends upon whether we want to minimize a particular problem or we want to maximize a particular problem. So here you can see in a particular set, what there is an element, let's say the element is x0, right? X0 is present in a particular state A. So if the problem is to minimize, what I can do, I have to find the fitness of any element in the set A, right? Any element, let it be x1 or x2 or x3 or xn up to xn. If I check the fitness, that fitness and the fitness of the particular element x0, if I compare, then f of x0 is less than f of x for all x belongs to A. Such type of problem is called as our minimization problem, because you are applying the same fitness function, right, onto different elements of that set, right? Then you are achieving x0 is the minimum one. So that is called as your minimization problem. For example, I can take a simple function, let's say x square minus 2x plus 1, right? Some function like this as a f of x. So I can declare this function as a fitness function. So this function takes input as a x, right? Based upon the input variable x, input value of x, it is going to evaluate this expression. So if x again, in this case, if you see the variable x has a limit, right? It has a boundary. It is the upper boundary as well as the lower boundary. So if I find a particular element x0 in which I am applying this particular function f of x, and that function, okay, is less than f of x, such problem we can call it a minimization problem. On the other hand, if you can see f of x0 is the maximum value in comparison to other values in the set of A, then I can call this function as your maximization problem. So based upon your whether you want to maximize your objective or you want to minimize your objective. Based upon that, you can decide whether to go for minimization or to go for maximization. So the main discussion with this genetic algorithm in the first session especially, we will discuss how we are going to encode it. If you go for genetic algorithm or particle swarm optimization or any kind of algorithm which is related to the non-traditional algorithm, the very first one is how you are going to map this variable into a particular genetics or a particular chromosome. That we call the first question arises, how variables in genetic algorithms are encoded. What is the procedure you want to apply in order to encode the variables? So the very famous one, you know that we can use the binary representation, right, which we are using in a computer system. Somebody may relying on the octal number system, right? Instead of going for binary system, somebody may say that I will go for octal coding. Somebody may refer that I can go for hexadecimal coding, right? So any type of coding you can use in order to encode the variables. This is the first discussion. I will tell you in details how we are going to encode using binary and octal and hexadecimal number system. Second one is how fitness function is calculated. What can be taken as a fitness function, right? So somebody may tell, I want to take the fitness function as the standard deviation. Like you know, in a particular data, if there is a heavy variation in a particular data set, okay, if you take a data set S, in that data set, there is a heavy variation. Means the elements are not in a particular small range, or not in a small range. It may happen that one variable is 1, another variable is 100, another variable may be 1 lakh, another variable may be 1 million, something like that. So if you see such data, if you calculate the standard deviation, so as there is a heavy variation in the data set, then you can say the standard deviation is more. But if you can say, for example, in a particular data, all the variables are 1, right? All the data elements are 1, or they are present in the range of 1 to 5. In that case, you can see that standard deviation is very low. So if you want to deal with a particular problem where variation plays an important role, there you can use this standard deviation as a fitness function, right? Most of the researcher also use the standard deviation as a fitness function in order to apply it into a large scale engineering problem, right? But standard deviation is not only the measure where you can apply for the fitness function. Somebody may take with respect to a particular domain, one can choose a particular fitness function which can be used to check that whether the particular chromosome or particular encoding what you have done, that is fit for the particular problem or not, right? So that's why second discussion what we will make, that is called as how fitness function is calculated and what may be the fitness function. Now, once you apply a fitness function, for example, in a class, 60 students are there, right? And there is a, in each and every university, we are calculating CGPA or SGPA, or you can say we are calculating the percentage system. Let's say this CGPA and percentage calculation I am treating as a fitness function, right? Then once I am calculating the fitness function, okay, or fitness value, by applying fitness function, I can get a fitness value. So I can get the fitness value of the 60 students, right? 60 students fitness value I can determine in the form of a fitness function, which is maybe a CGPA or percentage system. Once I am determining this fitness value, okay, in a campus placement, suppose I want to select only 10 students. In the initial phase, I want to allow only 10 students. So what I want to do, I have to apply some kind of selection method, right? The selection may be based upon the CGPA, based upon a company's need, based upon the extracurricular activity, okay? I have to finally select 10 people. Or sometimes what happens, these 10 people are the good candidates and rest people are not that much good candidate in comparison to these 10, right? So there we have to apply some kind of selection strategy. What we call in genetic algorithm, these are the specific selection strategy we are going to apply on the chromosome. First one is called as very famous one, that is Rowland-Hill method. Second one is your Boltzmann selection, which is used by in the simulated annealing. Right? I am not going to cover this selection method because this will be covered by madam. Third one is we will go for the tournament selection. Next one is called as your rank selection, right, which is a part of your Routel selection. Another one is called steady state selection. So out of these selection method, whenever you want to apply genetic algorithm in your problem, you have to choose one of the selection method. Then very frequently you can ask a particular question that which selection method is best. Okay, so I will tell you pros and cons of each and every selection method. So you have to visualize that thing in your problem domain in order to decide which selection method will be appropriate for you. In fact, in a global sense, you can say there is no selection method recommended by a particular researcher, right? In a particular problem or in a particular specific problem, you can say this selection method is a good selection method in comparison to other methods. The next one, we will see how we are going to maintain this mating pool, right? Mating pool is nothing but a group of chromosome. Mating pool is nothing but a group of chromosome. It is updated in each and every production, right? Whenever you exchange something between two different chromosomes, it is updated, right? So how we are maintaining this mating pool, that also we'll discuss. And we'll also see some of the inheritance operator that are used in the genetic algorithm, such as crossover and mutation. I will tell you these terms, don't be confused with these terms. I am going to tell each and every term more clearly.
Sir.
Yes.
Okay, can I ask you a question, sir? Sir, can you please tell about the Boltzmann selection assay? What basically the assay term signifies?
No, assay is an algorithm. Assay is a non-traditional optimization algorithm, which will be covered by our Manju madam. Okay, in which Boltzmann selection is used. Okay.
Okay. And sir, okay, and sir, the fitness function, you are telling that 60 students are in a class, and out of this, the 10 students are of good quality. So we have taken the 10 students now CGPA or percentage.
This CGPA and percentage can be called as your fitness function.
Okay.
Right. So by applying a fitness function, you can evaluate whether a particular student is fit or unfit. But by applying a selection procedure, you have to select a particular criteria, right? In a particular criteria, you can see that which selection method I have to use in order to select the chromosome, right?
Okay. And
this thing will clear in the upcoming slides, okay?
And so, the selection methods is basically which selections we are used for the computing the fitness function.
Exactly. Okay.
And the inheritance operation and the population of the mating pool is other two methods.
Yes. No. These are we are going to update in each and every iteration. This population of mating pools we are going to update in each and every iteration. For example, you know that these non-traditional algorithm will be executed for multiple number of iteration. Let's say 10 iteration or 20 iteration. So in every iteration, we are going to update this mating pool, right? And we are applying various inheritance operator such as crossover or mutation in order to update the mating pool. That I will tell you in upcoming slides.
Okay. Thanks.
So these are the major questions you can ask at the end of the lecture. Although there is no satisfactory answer for these questions. First question says that does an optimal solution exist or not, right? Whether if a particular problem is there, whether optimal solution exists or not, right? It is purely a problem specific question. If a solution exists, is it a unique solution? Like mathematics, you know that whenever we are solving a particular equation, so a equation may have multiple solutions, okay? Maybe multiple solutions, like whenever you are solving a quadratic equation, you are getting two values of x, right? So in a particular problem, if you are solving that problem and you are getting one solution, is that solution is a unique solution? That is a question. And what procedure you have to apply in order to get a optimal solution or a near optimal solution? That is another question. And how sensitive the optimal solution is, right? Whether the optimal solution is a unique one, or by applying many methods, you can reach to the optimum solution. For example, there are in mathematics, there are several methods are there. By using one of the method, you can find a particular solution. One person may use a procedure A, another person may use procedure B, and they will get the same result, right? And if you are changing something, some parameter, because these algorithms are parameter specific, if you are changing some parameter, whether it is going to affect your solution or not, that you are going to decide, right? Suppose I am changing this inheritance operator, I am changing this inheritance operator in a particular position. If that position will be changed, then whether it will affect your solution or not. So these are the major questions what we are going to discuss in the talks. Although you cannot say optimal solution is existing in each and every type of problem, right? So first one, you can see here where to apply the genetic algorithm. Try to understand. For all type of problem, you cannot apply genetic algorithm or particle swarm optimization, or in fact you can say non-traditional optimization algorithm. So in order to apply the genetic algorithm, there is a set of criteria is there, right? Or you have to check your problem space and determine whether it is fit for the genetic algorithm or not. For example, I will take a very small example. Let us consider I have 4 different tasks, right? I have 4 different tasks, right? 4 different tasks I want to execute by the help of a 2 computer system, right? I have 2 computer system and I want to execute 4 different tasks. So somebody may say that, let's say this is my first computer, this is my second computer, and these 4 tasks can be assigned to one of the computer, not to both computer. You decide whether to give the first computer or to give the second computer, but it should not be assigned to both the computer, right? So if you see the way we are assigning 4 different tasks to 2 different machines, the total number of possible solutions in this case, if you see, that is nothing but 2 to the power 4, right? 2 to the power 4. That is nothing but 16 number of solutions are possible, right? How I calculated, why I am saying this is 2 to the power 4 is 16, right? How I am getting the 16 solutions? For example, I am representing a chromosome like this. Let me call this chromosome. Call it a chromosome, right? In which I am writing, this is the first task, this is the second task, this is the third task, this is the fourth task. For example, first task is assigned to first machine, second task is assigned to second machine, third task to the first machine, fourth task to the second machine. So this is a complete solution. This solution, first task to first machine, second task to second machine, third to the first machine, and fourth to the second machine, is a solution which is coming under this 16 solution. Similarly, one person can say all are 1 or all are 2, right? Similarly, if you calculate all possible combinations, then you can say total number solution is 16. And this number of solutions is very small. The number of solution, this 16, is very small. In this case, you cannot apply genetic algorithm because your problem space is very small, right? But if I generalize this problem, for example, I will say I have n number of tasks where n is a very large number, and I have n number of computers and m is also a very large number. So if you see in this case, it is nothing but m to the power n. Okay, m to the power n number of solutions are possible. So if you go for such cases, and if the values are very high, for example, I will select m value as 16 and n value as 512, 16 to the power 512. You know that 16 to the power 512 is a very large number. If you can relax it to, let's say, 10 to the power 512 in order to calculate it easily, so it is followed by 1 followed by 512 number of zeros. Just I have, for easy calculation, I want to take, instead of 16 base, I want to take the base as 10. Okay, so this is 10 to the power 512. So 1 followed by 512 number of zeros are there. So in this case, if you see, the solution space is very high. The sort space is very high. So in this case, if the solution is such big one, then you can apply the genetic algorithm in order to find a particular solution. In fact, this algorithm is called as a multiprocessor scheduling algorithm, which is used in the mathematics, in which people are although already some researchers also applied the genetic algorithm in order to find a solution. That's why I have mentioned here. Yes.
Sir, you are telling that for applying the genetic algorithms, suppose for applying for a very large number of solutions, for applying
Yes.
here you are describing that 512. How this 512? You are taking just an example. That
Example.
is,
Yes. I am taking an example. I'm taking an example.
and here you are it's written that genetic algorithms are good at taking larger, potentially huge
Yes.
space. So there is any particular number that is how much larger, that is greater than
No,
100.
No. Where
Okay.
your traditional algorithm will fail, because I told you, whenever you are going for linear programming, you are taking these variables as a your design variables, right? You are taking large number of variables. So as you are taking large number of variables, for example, in a particular equation, you have 100 variables. So it is very difficult to calculate, right? Using linear programming. So in that case, you can go for genetic algorithm, right?
So why genetic algorithms are not applicable for a small value? Why actually?
Because in that can be solved using your traditional algorithm, right? So there is a lot of computations you are also doing in genetic algorithm by using random number. So such things you can avoid it, right? Okay. So you can combine one chromosome with another chromosome, right? You can make their combination in order to get a particular solution, which you have not expected in your lifetime as well. Because going for 10 to the power 512 number of solutions, if one solution takes 1 second, you assume that 10 to the power 512 number of seconds required in order to find an optimal solutions, right? So in this case, if you use genetic algorithm, by a couple of steps, you can find a particular solution, and that solution is close to your near optimal solution, right? So this is the things, whatever the main concept of your genetic algorithm, right? So there are three most important aspects of your genetic algorithm. I'll tell you about the objective function, and I'll tell you there is a difference between the objective function and fitness function. Although many researchers use the same function as a objective function as well as the fitness function, but these two things are different. I'll tell you later. Next one is how to represent these chromosome, right? Genetic representation through various coding techniques, like binary coding you can use, octal coding you can use, or you can use hexadecimal coding. And we'll discuss about various genetic operators like crossover, mutation, inversion, reproductions. Everything will come into under this genetic operator. So although there are various genetic operators are there, or inheritance operators are there, I am going to cover only these operators. Okay, like inversion operator I am going to discuss, deletion operator I will tell you, and segregation and mating operator. These operators are other operators are not popularly used in the case of genetic algorithm. So I have also not explored these other type of inheritance operators, right? So apart from this, we are going to see reproduction and crossover and mutation with example. I am going to tell you various types of crossover and your mutation. So this is the flow chart of your genetic algorithm. So I will go for each and every individual steps, and we'll see what are the challenge, or you can say open research issues in each and every steps. The very first step of the genetic algorithm is called the initial population. Okay, in order to generate the initial population, first you have to go for chromosome representation. How to represent the chromosome, right? Once chromosome is represented, you can generate a predefined number of initial population. For example, you decided that I want to generate only 10 chromosome, right? I want to take only 10 chromosome as a initial population. If you go for the research paper, the initial population people are taking only 100, right? 100 or at max 200. Don't take more than 100 and 200, right? As a initial populations, right? So once, what is this 100 and 200? These 100 and 200 are nothing but the 200 and 100 solutions. Like I told you, 10 to the power 512 number of solutions are exist, right? So each and every solution is a complete solution, right? Each and every chromosome representation is a complete solution. So like that, we can take 100 or 200 number of solutions, right? So once you take this 100 and 200 solutions, I will take a very small example, not 100 and 200, so that you can easily understand. Then you have to apply the selection strategy, whatever we discussed, right? This selection strategy, you have to apply to initial population. Many research papers suggested that after checking the fitness of this 100 and 200 chromosome, you can select, let's say, 10 chromosome and 20 chromosome out of these 100 and 200 chromosome in the selection procedure, right? Means out of 100 candidates are there, I have evaluated their fitness. After calculating their fitness, I have selected only 10 population. That is one procedure. Another group of researchers suggested that you take only 10 or 20 chromosome and you apply the selection strategy. The selection strategy will take the same number of population. Means if 10 populations are there in initial population, the same number of population will be there in the selection procedure. But these 10 population is not same as this 10 population. That I will tell you while we are discussing the selection method. Once you apply the selection method, then you are present in the new population step, where you can apply a couple of iteration in order to find a particular solution. So you can see there is a one directional arrow up to new population. Once you reach to new population, you can continue like this. Okay, this process, this loop you have to iterate until unless your termination condition is satisfied. Again, this termination condition varies with respect to the problem. Like one can say that I have to iterate the genetic algorithm up to 20 iteration, right? Once 20 iteration is done, I will stop my execution, and whichever is the best one, I will tell that is my solution. Another one, if you go for mathematics, you may have heard about something called as bisection method, right? Bisection method, right? If you go for bisection method, if you have not heard, then there is no problem. I am telling you, in bisection method, in the first iteration, suppose you are getting the value as 2.36, right? In the second iteration, you are getting the value as 2.32. Next case, I am getting the value as 2.28. Like that, if you are increasing the number of iteration, you are close to the solution. But in a iteration, let's say t minus 1 iteration, you are getting 2.28, and in t iteration, you are also getting the value as 2.28, right? In a t minus 1 iteration, you are getting the value as 2.28. In t iteration also, you are getting the value as 2.28. So what you can observe here, the solution is same in t minus 1 iteration as well as in t iteration. So here you can stop. Here you can put a termination condition. If the solution is same for t minus 1 iteration and t iteration, then that is my termination criteria to stop, right? So such type of termination criteria you can apply in this case, right? In this termination phase, right? And once your termination criteria is satisfied, then you will find your solution. Otherwise, you have to repeat this particular step. In this step, you have two operators. One is called as a crossover operator. I will go in details. That's why I'm not covering in this particular slide. In crossover operator, as I mentioned here, your termination condition is not satisfied. That's why you are going for the process of crossover. You are going for the process of crossover as your termination condition is not satisfied. And crossover is always applied to the parent. That's why I have written here. Crossover is always applied to the parent. Parent means the samples that are available in your new population. Suppose 10 samples are there in the new population. These 10 populations are called as your parent, right? Crossover always applied to the parent. Once crossover is over, okay, then you have to apply the mutation process, okay? So mutation is applied to the children which is generated by two different parents, right? For crossover, you require two different parents. One is, let's say, parent 1 and parent 2, right? So this parent will generate two children. One is children 1 and children 2. And you have to apply the mutation process into the children, not to the parent. Right? Mutation is always applied to the children. Once you apply the mutation process to the children, I call these children as modified children. Once you apply this operator, we call children as modified children. Once modified children is generated, I am going to check the fitness of the parents as well as the modified children. Because you have two parents, parent 1 and parent 2. You have similarly two modified children. One is modified children 1 and modified children 2. If the children is fit than the parent, then we are declaring that is a fit children. But if the children is not fit as compared to the parent, that is declared as your unfit children, and such chromosome will be discarded, right? But if the children is fit, then that will be updated into your new population. So these steps we are going to study in the remaining slides, right? Okay. So,
sir.
Yes,
Sir, why are you taking the initial population to the range of in the range between 100 to 200? If we take above 200,
no, I am saying based upon the research papers, the limit is 100 and 200. There is nothing wrong with 500. But if you take big one, then that is a complexity you are increasing, right? Okay. I am telling in the research proper point of view, they are taking 100 and 200 population. That's why in each and every step, whatever population you are choosing, whether it is 100 and 200 in the case of initial population, or 10 or 20 in the case of selection, that is a question mark, right? And that question mark is not solved yet, right? How many population is a perfect one for a particular problem is not defined till date, right?
Okay. And sir, you are telling one method, if we take initial population to be 10 and also the selection population
process is 10, yes. Initial population is 10, selection process is 10, but the chromosome, whatever there in the initial population is not same as selection. That I will tell you in the form of an example.
Okay.
Only the number of chromosome is same, but the if you see the their pattern, the pattern whatever there in the initial population is not same as the selection. But if you see the overall one, 10, here it is 10 and there it is also 10. Right.
So in initial population we take 10. So when selection is this is 10, but you are telling that this 10 is not equal to the initial population. So where is the extra population comes from? That selection.
No. I am telling you there are two cases. First case, you are taking your initial population as 100, right? There you are applying some selection method in which you are selecting, let's say 10 or 20 chromosome. That is the first case. Right. Second case, you are taking only, let's say, taking out of these 20, you are selecting something, but the output is again 20 only. But the number of populations, if you observe inside that they are pattern, these 20 is not same as these 20. So these two methods you can apply, right? Two ways you can apply this process from initial population to your selection.
Okay. Here the 20 output is not same as the initial 20 input.
So the number of chromosome is same, but their pattern is different.
But their parent is different.
Yes, whatever pattern you are doing, you are seeing in the initial population, it is different from the selection, right? I will give an example. Don't worry, I will give an example so that the idea is more clear. Okay. So next is you have to see the sort space, right? So sort space is nothing but where all the feasible solution exist. For example, let me take this is my sort space, right? This is my sort space, assume that, right? So where all the solution exist. So what we have to do, wherever the optimal solution is there, so our solution should move to that particular place. That is the objective, right? But all the solutions are available in the sort space, and it is not possible to go for each and every individual solutions. That's why we are taking only a subset of the solution. Like I told you, without taking 10 to the power 5, 12, what I am going to take, I will take only, let's say, 10 chromosome or 20 chromosome, and I want to apply all the genetic operators or inheritance operator into these 10 or 20 chromosome, and whatever solution I will get, that solution is a near optimal solution. Whatever you want to get, if you explore 10 to the power 512, you are going to get an optimal solution. But with this 10, whatever solution I will get, that is called as a near optimal solution. I may not get the exact solution, but whatever solution I will get, that is close to optimal solution, right? So each solution can be marked using your fitness value, right? Each and every chromosome is evaluated in the form of a fitness value. In order to go for this fitness value, what you have to do, you have to design a fitness function, right? And this fitness function will help you to generate the fitness value in order to say that whether a particular chromosome is fit or the chromosome is not fit, right? Then looking at for a particular solution, what we are doing here, we are looking for a solution from a all possible number of solutions, right? Is the same as you are looking for the extreme. This extreme may be a minimization or it may be a maximization. It varies with respect to the problem, right? And when the source space is complicated and you cannot explore this 10 to the power 512, there the genetic algorithm is a useful one where you can apply this for the solution of that particular problem, you can apply genetic algorithm. Okay. See this one. Here I have taken a maximization problem, right? I want to maximize a function that is f of x, right? So this f of x is nothing but my objective function. So I represent this small f of x for objective function, capital F of x for your fitness function. For the rest of the slide, this notation you please remember. Small f of x represent your objective function, capital F of x represent your fitness function. So what is my objective? My objective is to maximize a particular function f of x. So as suggested by various researchers, genetic algorithm initially designed to find the solution for maximization problem, right? Where you can say a particular range is given. For example, I will say the solution is available in between -5 to 5, right? If you are making it is a particular limit, or you can open it, you can say that I do not know what is the lower limit and upper limit, and that limit may be anything, right? The limit may be anything to a particular source space, right? On the other hand, if you want to solve a particular problem, which is a minimization problem, right? I mentioned that genetic algorithm is especially earlier it is meant for maximization problem. But if you want to solve a minimization problem, what you can do, you can convert a minimization problem into maximization problem and solve using the genetic algorithm. So how you are going to convert a minimization into maximization? For example, I want to maximize f of x in this case, so it is a maximization problem. On the other hand, somebody want to minimize this function that is f of x. So if you want to go for minimization of f of x, what you can do, I can say maximization of 1 by 1 plus f of x, right? Minimize f of x is same as maximize 1 by f of x. But why I have added this constant 1? Because sometimes it may happen that the f of x value is 0, right? If f of x value is 0, if I am taking 1 by f of x, then 1 by 0 is reaching to infinity, right? So in order to avoid that, where f of x is equal to 0, I can write 1 by 1 plus f of x as a objective function. So two ways you can solve the problem. One is you can solve a maximization problem, or you can convert a minimization problem to the maximization problem and solve using your genetic algorithm. Come to a first popular problem that is called as a knapsack problem. In the knapsack problem, you have a knapsack. Yes, please tell me.
Sir, in previous slide you were telling for minimizing problem, you are taking 1 by 1 plus fx. Why you are taking 1 by 1 plus fx? Why not 1 by fx? Then
if you are going for minimization of f of x, what I told you, you can go for maximization of 1 by f of x, right? 1 by f of x you can do, right, in order to convert a minimization problem into a maximization problem. But what happens when f of x is equal to 0? This is becomes 1 by 0, right?
Okay.
So 1 by
Okay.
0 is undefined, right? That's
Okay,
why we are
okay.
adding 1 plus in the denominator part. Otherwise, if
Okay.
you say that f of x is never equal to 0, then this function
Okay.
is fine in order to
Okay.
use as a maximization problem. Okay?
If f of x is equal to -1, then it will be 0.
F of x is equal to
Minus
minus 1.
1.
F of x is minus 1 is okay here, no problem, right? Here if you take
Then
minus 1 it is okay.
then 1 by 1 plus fx equal to
Then you can go for minus of f of x,
okay,
right?
then you okay,
Yes. Minus of f of
oh,
x, right? You can
oh,
see in the
okay,
last, if f of x is less than 0, you can go for
okay,
minus of f of x, right?
okay, okay, okay,
So see here, we are going to the first phase, that is encoding scheme, right? We are going for binary encoding scheme, in which we have a knapsack, right? Knapsack is nothing but a bag, right? In a particular bag, let's say in a particular bag, you can keep various elements, right? Or various things, right? Suppose you are going for a vegetable market, you want to bring some vegetables, so you are taking a bag, okay, or you are taking a knapsack, right? So each and every value, right, each and everything, okay, is represented in the form of two things. One is by value, another is size. For example, I will say 1 kg, the size is 1 kg, right, and the value is, let's say, $5, right? Let me write here. The cost is $5 for 1 kg for a particular thing. But another case, another thing, maybe the size is 1 kg, but its price is $100, right? Like there is a different price with respect to the variable. So what you can take multiple things in your bag subjected to the maximum load of the bag, right? For example, this bag can hold only 5 kg of vegetable, right? And you have so many vegetables, right? And their values and sizes given, right? If you want to go for this particular problem, knapsack problem, in which you want to represent the chromosome, how you are going to represent the chromosome? You have to take a chromosome like this, right? Suppose I want to take here, in this case I have taken 12 elements in a vegetable market. 12 number of vegetables are there, 12 different vegetables are there. So I have to decide whether to keep a vegetable in my bag or whether to not to keep a particular thing in my bag, right? That I am representing by 1 and as well as 0. 1 indicates I am keeping that thing in my bag. 0 indicates I am not keeping a particular thing in my bag, right? For example, if you say first vegetable is, let's say, potato, second is tomato, then you can say this is the chromosome representation, where 1 indicates that thing can be inserted into the knapsack, okay, and 0 indicates that is not inserted into the knapsack due to the limitation, or the value of that particular vegetable is less. That's why I am not going to fill in my knapsack, right? So this is the encoding scheme we are using in the case of knapsack problem. So you can see here, if a particular problem is having the chromosome size is 4, right? Here, as I mentioned, the chromosome size, whatever you have taken, is 12. But in a particular problem, if the chromosome size is 4, then what you can do? In a 4-bit case, if the value is 0 and 1, then you can get 16 number of solutions, right? Like I mentioned, in the task scheduling problem or the scheduling problem, if there are 4 tasks that you are going to assign in 2 different computer systems, so you have to decide whether to assign to computer 1 or computer 2, right? If you go for that, then you can generate 16 number of solution with a 4-bit binary string. Similarly, you can go for 2 variable function, right? You cannot say that a particular function is single variable. You can go for 2 variable. Like whenever you are going for multi-objective function, you are relying on 2 different functions. One is your f of x1, another is your f of x2. So here you can see I am representing each variable by a 4-bit string, right? So x1 can be represented from 00000 to your 1111, and x2 can be represented from 00000 to 1111, right? This is the range you can select for the variable x1 on x2. And a typical example you can say here, 1011 is the value for a particular chromosome of X1. 0110 is the chromosome value for X2. But irrespective of the solution, whether it is 000000000, 8 number of zeros to 8 number of ones, whatever solution may be, that is a complete solution. Okay, any chromosome you choose, that chromosome is giving you a complete solution. But in this case, you can say the lower bound is your 0000 for both the variables, and the upper limit is 1111, right? If you want to represent such problem in the range of 0 to 15, then you can encode the variables using 0000 to 1111, right? Coming to this particular illustration, you can see here what happened. The lower limit is not 0. The lower limit is selected as 2 and the higher limit is selected as 17, right? Lower limit is 2 and higher limit is selected as 17. Then how I am going to represent it, right? For example, here there is a question that find what value of 4-bit string is representing your 1010. If such a case there, 1010 is a binary string, you can convert this binary string into a decimal number format, right? If you want to convert it, you know that if you are aware of how we are converting a binary number to the decimal number, so it is nothing but you can go for 8421 rule, right? 8421 rule says that if the value is 1, then you are going to add that value. If the value is 0, you are going to skip the value. For example, in this case, 8 case it is 1, 2 case it is 1. So it is the equivalent of the decimal value 10. So the value is 10. The decimal value 10 can be encoded in a particular chromosome by 1010. But what is the problem here? The problem is my range is not in between 0 to 15. My range is in between 2 to 17. So what I can do, I can take the help of this particular formula in order to say what is the decimal equivalent of your 1010. The formula is you have to choose the lower limit, that is xil plus your xiu minus xil divided by total number of cases, that is 2 to the power 4 minus 1. That is the range, right? Multiplied by the decimal number of system, that is 10. So I am getting the value as 12. So if the range is 0 to 15, the decimal equivalent is 10. But if the equivalent is, if the lower limit is 2, means that if the limit is 2 to 17, then the decimal equivalent is 12, right? In this way, any type of problem you can represent using this particular formula. And it is also important to note that all the variables may not have the same number of strings. For example, x1 I am representing by a 4-bit string. That does not mean that x2 variable will also be representing the 4-bit string. But in general, irrespective of the variables, we are taking the same number of string, the same length of the string in order to represent it and in order to avoid the confusion. But there is no hard and fast rule how many bits are required to represent a particular string, right? Particular variable in the form of a string. Similarly, if you are going for another example, right? So for example, I want to represent a set of angles for which I want to generate the chromosome, right? So what I did, so I have taken the range as 0 to minus 80. The range is 0 to minus 80, or somebody may take minus 80 to the positive value as 90. So while you are going for this decoding, or while you are going for this encoding mechanism, it is not necessary that it is not specified that all the values are equal distance from each other. For example, you can see 10 to 20 the difference is 10, 20 to 30 the difference is 10, 70 to 80 the difference is 10. It is not necessary that they are equally distributed. So here you can see the 30 to, let's say 70, 30 to 45 the range is 15, the difference is 15, 45 to 60 the difference is 15, 70 to 60 the difference is 10. So it is not necessary to go for the equal distribution for mapping of the binary code with respect to a particular angle or a particular problem where we are concentrating on the fiber angle. Next, you can also apply, instead of going for binary encoding, which is a very popular one, you can also apply octal coding, or you can go for hexadecimal coding. If you want to go for octal coding, the value is ranging from 0 to 7, and hexadecimal coding, the value is ranging from 0 to 9, and the value is continuing from A to B. Yes, tell me.
Sir, in the previous slide, the fiber angle, you are considering for any arbitrary value, the range, that is 10, 20, 30, the range. Okay.
Yes, yes.
And what is the fiber angle?
Yes, yes.
And it,
Not,
what actually means the fiber
no,
angle?
this particular problem. No, that is a particular problem. The problem
Okay.
is fiber angle problem.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So if you go for octal coding, you know that octal the values are 0 to 7. So you can take the lower limit from 0000 to 7777 for variable x1. Similarly for x2, right? And if you are going for hexadecimal, you can start from 0 to 9, and you can take this alphabet AB, which AB up to F, which represent from 10 to 15. If you go for such cases, the value ranges from 0000 to your FFFF, right? So it is not necessary to represent everything in the form of binary coding. But many research paper, if you see 90% to 95% research paper, they are going for binary coding. Nobody is going for octal coding and hexadecimal because it is much easier. Similarly, there is another type of coding which is called as permutation coding. For example, if you go for traveling salesman problem, what happened? There is a salesperson, right? That salesperson want to visit to multiple cities. Like the city is like this. So he is present in a particular city. He want to initiate from a particular city. So he want to travel to all other cities and finally reach to the initial city, such that no city will be traversed twice. A city should not be traversed twice. For example, I am moving from here to here. Let's say here to here, again here to here, again here to here. So if you see this particular solution, no city is traversed twice. If you go for such type of problem, how you are going to represent your chromosome? You can see here the chromosome. Let's say there are total number of cities is 9. So I am taking the length of a particular string is 9, in which you can see each and every individual value is unique. So in MATLAB, there is a function. Please note down this function that is called as random permutation. RANDPERM, permutation, PERM. If you use this random permutation function, then you can generate the random numbers in a particular range in which there is no repetition. But if you see such in other strings, what we are doing? We are going for repetition. If your problem require non-repetition or you don't require repetition, you can use this particular permutation function in order to generate the chromosome, right? Or you can go for the task ordering, in which one task will be scheduled once. So here you need a unique number. There you can generate the chromosome like this, right? Sometimes what happens while you are generating the chromosome, if you are getting the repetition, then you have to modify the chromosome in order to make the chromosome as a consistent one. For example, I am not using any function. I am generating the chromosome in which I am getting 2 ones, right? 2 number of ones. In that, what happened? You have to correct it, right? Because 1 should be appear once and 6 should be appear 1. So you have to do some genetic operator correction in order to make the chromosome a consistent one, right? Next, similarly, you can go for value coding, right? In value coding, what happens? You can take a real number, right? I can take 1.234, 5.3243 also. I can take a string also. I can take a group of string, right? Or with some special character also, I can initialize a chromosome. But in general, we are referring the binary coding. So we will more focus on the binary coding in order to understand the rest of the steps of your genetic algorithm.
Sir,
yes.
in value coding, there can be repetition also. 1.2.
Yes. It is your problem specific. If your problem require repetition, you go for it. Okay, by using this random function, RAND function give you repetition. But whenever you are using random permutation function in the MATLAB, right, RAND permutation function, that will give you the data using non-repetition, right? So it depends upon you, right? Like as mentioned by Dr. Saha in yesterday's lecture, he told about the weights. Whenever you are dealing with the neural network, you are updating the weights, right? So in order to initialize the weights, you are generating the values in between 0 to 1, right? So there the value may be repetition. There may be a repetition, right? There is no problem. Weight of one layer is same as the weight of another layer, or in the same layer, different edges may have different weights, and that's why two weights may be same. So in that case, you can go for with repetition, right?
Okay.
So such type of case we can go for random function. But if it is require unique weight, then you can go for random permutation function, right?
Okay. Okay, sir.
Similarly, you can go for tree coding also. In tree coding, you can generate a particular tree in order to represent a particular chromosome. That tree consists of your functions as well as your command. For example, let me take a small example here. X plus 5 divided by y. So this, if I represent this particular expression, I can take a node as plus, right? In which I can say x is a variable, 5 is a constant, right? And okay, then let's say if there is a bracket here, right? I'm going to evaluate this expression first. Then once this result is over, what I can do, I can whatever the solution I am getting, I am going to divide it with another variable y. So such type of expressions if you have, where you can represent in the form of tree, right? If you want to convert to the chromosome, that is also possible, where we are using tree coding, where it is consist of a set of variables as well as a set of constants.
Sir,
Yes.
in the coding you have discussed, that is x plus 5 by y. First,
Yes.
we actually this plus sign is converted to the beginner term. Then
No,
and
this is a prefix position. If you apply prefix notation, so as there is no bracket, obviously the division operation has higher priority. So 5
okay,
slash y will be slash 5y. Then it will
okay,
be added with your x. So it is plus x divided by 5y.
okay,
That's why I have written. But
okay.
if in this tree coding, what I have taken bracket of x plus 5 divided by y, right? So that
Okay,
case, first x plus 5 will be evaluated, then the division operation will be done, right?
okay, okay.
Okay, so these things we have already discussed, so I'm not going to it. You can go for 1 divided by f of x if you want to convert a minimization problem into a maximization problem. If you are thinking that f of x is equal to 0, then you can go for 1 plus f of x in the denominator part. Now, for calculating the fitness function, let us take a fitness function. I have defined a particular fitness function that is nothing but pi of theta 1 and theta 2. If you go for that expression, it is nothing but minus 4 sine theta 1 minus 6 theta 2 minus 4 theta 2 minus 2 cos theta 2. This is my fitness function where theta 1 and theta 2 value ranges from 0 to 90. So if you see in the fiber angle case, I told you, you can represent the values in between 0 to 90 or in a particular range. Okay. So what happens once you decide the theta 1 and theta 2 value, for example, theta 1 is 0 and theta 2 is also 0, then I can evaluate this particular equation. This particular expression I can evaluate. Once I will evaluate this one by the help of this objective function, what I am going to get? I am getting a fitness value. That fitness value will decide whether that particular chromosome is a fit one or that particular chromosome is a unfit one, right? So as in this case, I am not sure what is the theta 1 value and theta 2. I know their range is 0 to 90, but I do not know what is the exact value is fit for a particular problem. So I am calling these two values as your unknown, right? There is two unknown variables are there, and I want to represent theta 1 by a 4-bit string and theta 2 by another 4-bit string. So your chromosome is having your 8-bit string, right? Your chromosome is having 8-bit string where first 4-bit represent your theta 1, next 4-bit represent your theta 2. And once you know the theta 1, theta 2 value, you can calculate the objective function, right? So if you go for this 4-bit system, you know the total number of possibilities is 16. So if you start from 0, it is 0 to 15. That's why in denominator part I am taking 2 to the power 4 minus 1. right? So if you calculate this one, so you know that your upper limit is 90 and lower limit is 0. So that is nothing but 90 divided by 15. So in each and every string represent a 6 degree. Okay. So total 90 degree is there. If you divide it by 15, so you will get 6 degree. So each and every string can be represented as a 6 degree. If there is a variation, for example, I will say that this value is 90 and this value is 180. As I mentioned, this particular equation you can use in order to scale the values in the range of 90 to 180, right? Okay. See here, what I did here, initially if the angle is 0 degree, okay, so I have taken the binary coding as 00, 6 is 0001, 12 is your 0010, 18 is 0011, like that you can say 90 indicate 1111, right? So x1 can take a particular binary coding, right, a 4-bit string. X2 can also take another binary coding. Okay, once or theta 1, theta 2 we have taken in this case. Theta 1 can be taken one binary coding, theta 2 can be taken as another binary coding, where theta 1 and theta 2 represent one angle between 0 to 90. Now come to this particular equation. So this fitness function, I told you fitness function f, let my fitness function f, I told you that fitness function is represented by capital F, right? And objective function is represented by small f, right? And let this capital F is equal to f dash minus 7, which is equal to minus f minus 7. Just I have taken a random thing, right? You can take any expression, there is no problem. So what happened? I have generated 8 population, right? I told you you want to go for initial population. In initial population, you have to generate 10 chromosome and 20 chromosome. So in this problem, for the simplicity, I have taken only 8 chromosome. Right? You can see here there is 8 chromosome is there. Okay. And each and every chromosome, okay, or population gives you a complete solution. You take 1, you take 4, you take 7, 8, whatever may be the final decision, that is giving you a complete solution, right? And if you see here, the first population I have generated randomly, right? I have taken a 8-bit string. I have generated a 8-bit string in the range of 0 to 1. If you generate the range in between 0 to 1, right? Suppose the value you are getting here, let's say 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. All values are 0. You may get, right? Somebody may get randomly, let's say 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, let's say 0, 0, 0, 1, like that it may get, right? For 8 population, what you have to do? You have to generate random 8 population. Is it okay? 8 populations are there. In each and every population, you have to generate a 8-bit string, and this is completely random, right? But once you generate a string, let this is the string whatever generated. You know that is what is the equivalent. Like 0, 0, 0, 0 indicates 0 degree, 0, 0, 0, 1 indicates 6, 0, 0, 1, 0 indicate your 12, right? 0, 0, 1, 0 indicate your 12, right? So you can convert this population into angle, right? Because you have the coding scheme. You know that which angle is represent which particular 4-bit string, right?
Sir.
Decided. Yes.
Sir, here the 0, 0, 0 corresponding to the theta 0, you are taking the from any problem value. The 0, 0, 0 gets 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0
no,
gets 12.
This thing we have generated randomly, right?
Okay.
And I told you in the previous slide, right, the values 0, 0, 0, 0 to 1, 1 is equally distributed among the 0 to 90 degree, right? Each 6 degree represent one coding. So I am converting this population into angle, where 0, 0 represent your 0, okay, and 0, 0, 0, 1 represent 6, 0, 0, 1, 0 represent 12, like 0, 0, 1, 1. 0, 0, 1, 1 is not here. 0, 0, 1, 1 represent your 18, and so on. Is it okay?
Okay.
Once you find this theta 1 and theta 2, you can apply the fitness function. So what is the fitness function? The fitness function is nothing but minus f minus 7, right? So what is your f? F I told you, f is nothing but your pi of theta 1 comma theta 2. So instead of writing minus f minus 7, what I am writing here, minus pi of theta 1 comma theta 2 minus 7. And this theta 1, pi of theta 1 theta 2 is nothing but minus 4 sine theta 1 minus 6 cos theta 1 minus 4 sine theta 2 minus 2 cos theta 2. I told you in the previous slide. If you put the same expression here by replacing theta 1 by 0, because in your first population the value is 0, theta 2 value in your first population is also 0. If you put that one, then you will get the fitness value as 1.00, which is written here, right? In order to generate the fitness of the second population, what you have to do? You have to put this theta 1 value as 12, right? 12 degree, and theta 2 value as 6. So if you evaluate this particular expression, then you are going to get the value as 2.10. Is it clear how it is coming, right? So similarly, irrespective of the populations, once you if you convert it into angle, okay, if you take that angle and put in this particular expression, you are going to get the fitness value, right?
Sir,
Yes.
yeah, you are taking f equal to here in this any random value f equal to f dot minus 7, you have to minus f minus 7. We can take any value, but
Yes,
that is
I have taken this as a minus f minus 7 in this example.
okay. We can take plus f also or any value. Okay.
No, generally f dash is represented as minus f. If you go for, I told you, if you want to convert the maximization problem to minimization problem, there we are
Okay.
using minus of f, right?
Okay, minus.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So with
Okay.
respect to the problem, this fitness function will be different, right?
Yeah,
So
and
once you calculate, yes, you can
and
evaluate
yeah,
the, yes,
here it is the we are trying to find out the maximize value, that is minus of fx.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So if you go calculate these fitness values, once you determine this fitness value, now you can decide which population is fit, which population is unfit, right? That we will do in the process of selection. So I'm not going to details talk about this one, because we are going to see that how these selection methods are applied. So quickly we'll go, because the time is very short, right? So if you go for first type of method, that is called as Roulette-Hill method, or we call as RW selection method. In this RW selection method, I told you in this previous example, you are aware up to this column, right? You know how to, we have taken 8 population, right? You know how to generate the chromosome, right? And you know how to convert this population into angles, and you know how to calculate the fitness function, right? And just I have taken a new thing here. I have calculated the F average. I have added these 8 values. After adding 8 values, I have divided by 8 in order to calculate the average using this particular formula, right? I have taken all the fitness values divided by sum of, this I'll come later, right? So you can take the, you can add all the fitness values divided by your 8, you will get F bar as 2.908, right? Now there is a new column here, that is PI. PI is called as probability of ith string selected in the selection process, right? You know that whenever we are tossing a coin, as mentioned by Dr. Saha in the last day lecture, so there is a probability that it is 0.5 and 0.5, right? Similarly, there is a probability that whether population 1 will be selected in the selection process, or the population 2 will be selected, or population 8 will be selected, right? For that, we have taken what is the probability of selection of a particular string I. So in order to calculate that, we are using a particular formula, that is nothing but probability of a particular string I is nothing but fitness of I divided by your sum of all fitness. So if you do so, for example, in this case, fitness of your first population is your 1 divided by sum of all fitness value. And sum of all fitness value, if you calculate, sum of fitness value, their average, if you calculate, you are getting the value as 2.908, right? If you divide it, how much you are going to get? You are getting the value as 0.0429. You check once, somebody may check this whether we are getting 0.0429 or not. You check once. 1 divided by your 2.908.
It's coming, sir.
Yes, okay. So this is the probability you are going to get, right? Similarly, you can calculate for the population 2. You can take 2.10 divided by this 2.908. If you see, then you are going to get 0.090.
Sir,
So
sir.
this is the probability. Just a minute. This is the probability
Okay.
that a particular population is going to be selected. But I don't know which population will be selected in the process of selection. Just I am doing by the help of this particular formula. Okay, tell me.
Sir, here you are telling that pi equal to 1 divided by the sum of population. Actually, you have to sum 1 plus and not the average, because you are telling the summation. So
Yes,
it is
yes,
not
it is
to be
the-
1 not
Yes,
to be
yes.
2.908. Actually, it would be
Yes,
1
yes, that
sum.
is, you have to take the average. Sorry, the formula is wrong, right? You have to take the average.
Okay,
Right?
then the value will be changed. That is not 0.1 divided by 2.90. It is not to be 0.04. Actually, it will be 1.
You check once. You check once.
1 divided.
If it
No,
is
no,
not,
I can add here, sir. The formula is correct and the probability is also correct. But the F
Yes,
bar
yes.
you have given as average of those
Yes,
fitness
yes,
factors.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes,
all.
it is correct. Okay, okay. Sorry for the confusion. Okay, whatever sir told, it is correct. So this is the average part. This is the average part, and you are calculating probability using this formula. That means, in order to calculate the probability of the first sample, it is 0.0429 divided by all the fitness value. All the fitness value means you have to sum all the values and you have to keep in the denominator part. Okay, sorry for this confusion, right? Okay, similarly, you can calculate for the second population. It is 0.09, right? Divided by 0.09 divided by the entire population, fitness values, right? So that you will get this probability, because for that only you are getting sum of the probability as 1. Otherwise, you will not get probability 1 if you are going to divide by F bar, right?
So,
once
sir,
you, yes,
sir,
yes,
so sir, so we are going to pi equal to 1. Actually, first we have taken 1, then the summation of 1 plus something plus all this, then we have to get 0.0429. Is this your saying,
yes,
sir?
yes, yes. 1 divided by 1 plus 2.10 up to
Okay, yes, sir.
4.55.
Yes.
If you
Oh,
calculate, you are going to get 0.04.
okay. Yes, 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 sir. Yes. Okay.
Sorry, I told, actually I confused you, right? I'm extremely sorry
Yes,
for that.
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. So once you determine this one, right, you can see in this case, once you have calculated this one, the highest probability is nothing but 0.2, right? You see all the values, the maximum value is 0.2 and the lowest value is 0.0429. What it shows, the probability of sample number 5 or population number of 5 or chromosome number of 5 is higher in comparison to the population number of 1, right? So what we are doing, we are representing this probability in the form of a wheel, right? We are converting this probability in the form of a wheel, right? How we are representing? So you can see here 0.20, if I multiply by 100, because these values are present in decimal, right? Decimal, the 0.2, if I multiply by 100, then this will come as a 20%, right? So you can see the population number of 5 captures 20% of the whole. Just like you can say this is a pie chart, right? Okay, the whole circle is 100% and 20% is captured by 5. Similarly, if you see here, population number 1 takes only 4%, that is 4.29%. If you multiply by 100, so see, population number 1 keeps only 4 point some percent, it is rounded to 5%. So what we are going to do in this root hill selection, there is a pointer here, right? So we are going, this pointer is constant, this pointer is not variable. We are going to rotate this wheel. If you rotate this wheel, what is going to happen? After some time, this wheel will be stopped in some particular point. So as these samples, the sample number of 5 having more probability, there is more chance that this particular sample will be selected. But if you see, as the sample number of 1 captures only 5% of the chart, so there is a less probability that the population 1 will be selected in the root hill selection, right?
Sir, in slide 5 and slide 8, both are 20%. So both 5
Yes,
and
yes,
8
because
can.
this value is 0.19. So whenever you are
Okay.
rounding, the value we are representing is 20%.
Okay, then.
Okay,
Okay.
we are
Okay.
not
Okay.
going for all the decimal parts. That's why I am rounding here, right?
Okay. Okay.
So what
Okay.
is the here? As fifth individual having higher fitness value, so you can say fifth individual has more chance, or you can say next to fifth individual, eighth is the more chance to be selected using the root hill selection method, right? So next, I'm not going to the theory due to the time limitation. Let me go to the problem, right? Directly. So these things I have already discussed. I told you what is population. I told you what is theta 1 and theta 2, right? Here I am writing in the form of a 4-bit string. You can go for 0 to 90-degree angle as well. I also told how you have calculated the probability pi, right? Then come to these calculations, right? So one can also do this calculation of the cumulative probability. Instead of going for the probability, one can go for cumulative probability in order to decide which particular sample is selected in the process of root hill selection. For example, you can see here, as we have the number of string as 8, okay, number of population is 8, what we are doing, we are going to multiply the probability with 8, right? So whatever values you have here, you multiply with 8. That is called as our expected count. Our expected count is calculated as n multiplied by pi. Pi is your probability. N is nothing but your sample, which is represented in the column A, right? In column B, what we are calculating? We are calculating the cumulative probability. And you know, cumulative probability of the first sample is same as pi, right? Similarly, cumulative probability of the last sample is always 1. And cumulative probability of the rest sample, you have to add. For example, cumulative probability of 2, if you find, that is nothing but 0.0429 plus 0.0900. Similarly, cumulative probability of 3 is nothing but 0.0429 to 0.1336. So here I have calculated the cumulative probability of P5. That's why I need to add all the 5 probabilities and the value will come at 0.6388. So this is the cumulative probability of P5. I'll tell you why we have calculated this cumulative probability. So once you calculate this cumulative probability, right, and you know that the final probability of the sample 8 is always 8. The first sample having the probability of 0 to pi, right, and the next sample having the probability apart from the first sample, the other samples having probability of pi minus 1 to your pi, right? So once you calculate this probability, you know that what is the range. The range of the first population is 0 to 0.0429. The range of 2 is nothing but 0.0429 to 0.1329. Next case, it is 0.139 to 0.266. Like that, it will so on, right? So once you calculate this cumulative probability, what you are doing, you are generating a particular random number which is listed in the column number C, right? This random number you can generate in between 0 to 1. In fact, all the random numbers are generated in fact in the range of 0 to 1. So randomly, let's say these values are coming 0.259 to 0.893, which I have represented in the column number C, right? Then in the column number D, what I have to do, I have to see that which particular chromosome is a fit one and which particular chromosome is not fit, right? So for that, what I have to do, the column D of the population 4, if you see, the value is your 0.428, right? If you see their chromosome, right, like you can see here, you can apply a particular function like here you can see that how many number of ones are there in a particular chromosome as a fitness, or you can take this theta 1 theta 2 function in order to decide what is the value for this particular chromosome, right? The fitness function varies, right? But here we have taken theta 2 theta 1 and theta 2, right? So once you generate this random number, what you are going to do in column D, you are going for a particular population. Let's say I am generating a particular population in which I want to do a particular selection. Let's say the values are 3, 1, 5, 4. These values are also generated by applying some random calculation, right? So once you determine this one, this column D, right, then you have to decide that which chromosome is a fit one, which chromosome is not a fit one. For example, you can see in this case, 4 is repeated twice, right? 4 sample is repeated twice. How we have decided 4 is repeated twice? Because the random number, for example, the random number is 0.259 here, right? So whenever we are going for the crossover, you can go for randomization. But in this case, this value random number is 0.259. I will ask you where this 0.259 lies in the cumulative probability. If you see the cumulative probability, 0.259 lies in between your 0.1329 and 0.266. In this range, the 0.25 random number lies. So it is written as 3 because that is the range of the population number 3. Similarly, the next random number is 0.038. 0.038 lies in the range of 0 to your 0.0421, 0.0429. So this 0.0429 is coming under the population cumulative probability of population 1. That's why we are writing 1, right? Similarly, you can note down these values, but these values, whenever you go for the crossover, these values are generated randomly. But here, it is relying on what random number you have generated and where the your cumulative probability lies. Based upon that, you have selected a particular population. And if you see here, the number of count of 3 is 1, right? That's why if you see in this case, the number of count of 1 is 1. The number of times 2 is repeated is 1. The number of times 3 is repeated is 1. Number of times 4 is repeated is 2. Number of times 5 is repeated 2. Number 6 and 7 is not repeated. And 8 is repeated 1 time. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes,
how
sir.
you are getting this C column? One second, again explain.
C is we are generating randomly, sir. In between 0 and 1. Yes. C column is generated randomly, but once you generate the random number, you check that whether the random number lies in the range of population 1 or population 2 or population 8. Once you find that range, that value we are writing in the column D. Yes, if you have any question, you can ask.
Sir, can you please again explain the D column? I actually have a problem. How the D column?
What is the random number here?
0.259.
0.259. This is the cumulative probability column, right?
Yes, sir.
Where it lies? It lies in between 0.139 and 0.266.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
The value is in between 0.139 and 0.26. That is the cumulative probability range of number 3. That's why we are writing 3.
Oh, it is it is lying between the 0.12 and so we are taking the maximum range 0.266. So we are
Yes. I told you, na. First population in the range is 0.02, 0.0429, and others are 0.05 to 1329 for 2, 139 to 266 in 3, like that, so on.
And for the 0.038, it is lying between the 0 and 0.429. So we are taking
which case?
For the C value 0.038.
Yes, 0.38. The value lies in between this. Okay. So we are taking the population number 1.
Okay, 0.03. It lies between 0 to 0.0429. So we are
exactly. Taking 1. Okay. So in this case, if you see, what we are doing, we are writing the occurrence. How many times 1 is repeated? 1. How many times 2 is repeated in this column? 1. How many times 3 is repeated? 1. 4 is repeated twice. 5 is repeated twice. 6, 7 is not there in the D column. 8 is repeated 1. So what Root Hill is going to do? It is discarding the population number 6 and population number 7. Okay, that's why in the final population, if you see which is selected, if you see the population, this two particular population is not there, whereas the population number 4 and 5 is repeated twice. This is the population number 4, this is the population number 5, is repeated twice in the new population. Is it okay? So you can use this wheel concept, or you can take the cumulative probability based upon that, you can select a particular chromosome,
Sir,
and you can check that which chromosome is repeated twice and once, and those chromosomes having least count or no copies that you have to discard, you have to replace them by the chromosome which is repeated more than once. That's why I told you your initial population is 8 and your final population is 8, but the strings that are present in the initial population is different from the strings that are present in the final population. Yes.
Sir, for the last slide, last column, the population theta 1 and theta 2, here just crossing the 0, 1, 0 plus. Can you please explain in the last?
I have copied. One is copied how many times? One is one time, right?
One time, yes, sir.
I am writing the same one here.
Okay, sir.
This is same as this one.
Okay.
Right. 2 is repeated how many times? One time. This is
one
same
time.
as this one.
Okay.
3 is repeated one time. This is same as this one.
Okay,
4 is
sir.
repeated how many times? 2 times. So it is repeated here. 5 is repeated here. And the last one is repeated here. Okay.
And
so
last one is not 0, 0. That is the E00. So 0, 1, 1, 0 is repeated.
0, 1, 1, 0 is your nothing but your population number 5. Because 6, 7 you have discarded, right? Because you have taken the value as 0.
Okay.
The cumulative probability is not coming, right?
Okay, not coming. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, these things I have written in this case. Yes.
Excuse me. Just can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah, here it is obvious that the best fit, that is the 5th chromosome, had got 2 copies. That is accepted. Yes. And if you look at the 6th and 7th have least fit. The probability is also minimum. They are discarded. Also fine. Exactly. But why is it that the 8th chromosome, which has almost the same fitness as the 5th one, is getting only 1 copy, whereas 0.17, which is the 4th one, is getting 2 copies?
Exactly. Very good question. Madam, actually, whenever we are going for this one, right? Whenever we are going for root selection, we are rotating this wheel, right? So there may be a chance that the least one will come into picture, right? And there is also a region, right? I will give a non-technical example. For example, for a particular child, parents 1, right, means his father is an IAS officer, right? Father 2 is also an IAS officer. That does not mean that the children is also an IAS officer or he will do a very good service, right? So sometimes what happens, good fit population may not produce good children, right? Or it is also, on the other end, you can say, bad population should not generate bad population. They might generate also good population. For example, parent 1 is a thief, parent 2 is also a thief. That does not mean that the children 1 and children 2 is also a thief, right? So there is also a likely probability that the less chance will come into the picture. That is the reason, as it is a complete randomness, so it will it may come into the selection procedure.
Yeah, one thing just want to make it clarify. Here, this table you have shown only to understand Rowlett wheel selection, or are we? That's all, no?
Yes,
okay.
It is yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So these theories I'm not going. You can go for details. Okay. Next, we'll take a break or we'll continue. As you wish. Shall we continue? Or we'll take break of 5 minutes.
Can take 5 minutes break.
Okay, now the time is 6:43. We'll start at 6:50, right? 7-minute break.
Okay.
Okay, if anybody is having any question, please ask in the break time. So I am here only. There is no problem.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, here in the last slide, before break, you are telling that there are no copies.
Hold for a moment, Pritham. I request Panda also to take a break of 5 minutes.
Okay, sir.
We also want to listen to the clarifications you give.
Okay, sir. Just a minute. The last doubt I will cover. And okay, please, Pritham, please tell me.
There is no copies of 1 and 6. Can you please
there is no copy of?
No, there is 1 and 6. Yes.
No, there is no copy of 6 and 7. There is no copy of 6 and 7. 1 is there, na? You check here.
Yes,
All
yes.
zeros and all zeros is there, right? Only 6, 7 is not there.
Okay, and so you are writing for the 6 expression 4 and 5 0 1 1 0 and 0 1 1 0 writing
No.
2 copies.
No. See, here the population number 4 is repeated twice. Population number 5 is repeated twice, right? Population number 4 is repeated twice. Here, you check 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 and 1 0 0 0. And population number 5 is also repeated twice. That is your 0 1 1 0 and 1 0 1 0. As I have written this thing in the 6th and 7th row, you are confusing. This is the representational problem, right? Is it okay? But 6, 7, you check the sample 6 and 7.
Okay.
Sample 6 and sample 7 is not there in the entire set.
Yes.
Is it clear, Pritam?
Okay, so you are writing for coding. Yes, sir. So you are writing for 0 1 1 0 the coding. Here for the 6 here 1 1 1 0 and 1 0 0 0. So you are writing for 0 1 1 0 and 1 0 1 0.
Yes, this is your sample number 4. This is also sample number of 4.
Okay.
Because sample number of 4 we need to repeat 2 times. Right? Similarly, sample number 5 also need to repeat 5 times. This is sample number 5. This is sample number 5.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Okay.